it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And
okay,
again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everyone? Dissidents, welcome, one and all. Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween!
To a special.
What are these goddamn creatures?
There you go. Look at that. See how into it Russell gets?
I'm doing the whole show in character.
Doing the whole show, yeah, in his voice, indeed. Thank you guys all very much for being here on this Halloween day, doing a little special matinee fan service for all you lovely folks out there. Every day feels like Halloween in Joe Biden's America, doesn't it?
It really does.
Scary shit out there. Scary shit out there. You know, we had an idea for October that we would sort of integrate a horror film recommendation with every show based on the theme of the show. But then, you know, every show had the same theme. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of movies out there like, you know, Night of the Living Zionists, you know, not a lot of appropriately themed horror films to recommend. And so, unfortunately, we just kind of had to shelve that plan. And so we figured, since we had to shelve that, we should do something for Halloween. We did something last year. Maybe we'll do something this year. Obviously, I got a trick or treat with my guys this evening. Family costumes, Cat in the Hat. I have twin boys, so as you can imagine, they are Thing 1 and Thing 2, and they have pretty killer costumes, actually. They have the blue hair and everything. And then my wife is going as the mom with the goldfish bowl. So that should be fun. And obviously, you all know who Russell is.
Here we are in this foul year of our Lord, 2023.
Yeah.
Under this criminal administration. Joe Biden makes Nixon look like a warrior poet of epic proportions. I never thought I would see today.
You know, there is old footage of Hunter S. Thompson actually bashing Joe Biden. Have you seen that?
Is there?
This is from years ago. It's from like 30 years ago. Because, you know, Biden's been a piece of shit for a long time, back when Hunter was still alive and well.
Oh,
yeah. And, you know, he had the rum on stage.
He got elected in 72.
72, yeah. It was a very, very young man.
Fear and loathing on the campaign trail.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hunter did have some words for Joe Biden back in the day. And, you know, that is a fake cigarette that Russell is holding because Russell quit smoking a couple years ago. Although you could have brought, you know, some rum on the show and done it really in character. That would have been appropriate.
That's true.
For sure.
Now you tell me.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the other hand, we only, you know, we've got about an hour and a half. You know, wouldn't want this to be a 4-hour show when Russell gets going. But you got the sunglasses and everything. It looks good. The costume looks good.
I did one show drunk. Only patrons have access to that room.
Yeah.
The New Orleans show.
The New Orleans show. But that wasn't live. We just did a special recording. We never actually did a live stream drunk. But thank you guys all for being here. Hit that like button over on Rumble. Hit that like button. Hit that follow button. We are getting back to the standard show tomorrow. You know, given the horrors of the world, we didn't feel it appropriate to dress like this on Sunday when we were doing actual material. Last year we just kind of combined the Halloween show with the regular show because I don't know what we were talking about. I don't know, woke Spider-Man or something like that. It doesn't really matter
some shit.
how you look for that. Some bullshit. Yeah.
Fucking goddamn fucking men in the women's locker rooms.
Yeah, exactly.
Sons of bitches.
Sons of bitches. Yeah. So,
criminal degenerates.
So, yeah, I mean, we didn't feel it appropriate to, cross the streams in that way. So we're doing a little special stream for you guys today. I am fielding Rumble rants. We are without Jake, our producer, but I know we got a couple of them come in already, so I am taking those. Obviously, we got our first super chat. Thank you very much for that. But yes, tomorrow, we also, because what's going on in the world is so serious, we didn't want to swap out a regular show for a Halloween show. So,
Exactly.
So we are going to be back in action tomorrow with our regular show. However, we do have a prior engagement tomorrow evening, and so we will be doing tomorrow's show at 2:30 p.m. Tomorrow's show will be a matinee, so 2:30 p.m. we will be live, but plenty of real stuff to cover tomorrow. But for today, we wanted to list 10 dissident horror films that we love, dissident-themed horror films. Last year, we did a general list, so I'll read those down now just so that there's no mystery as to why they're not being mentioned. So last year, we picked Society.
These fuckers are like rabid dogs.
I know, they'll come after you.
They'll hunt us down if we don't mention their favorite films.
They'll come after you. Society, The Hunt, Videodrome, Stepford Wives, The Mist, Candyman, Dawn of the Dead, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Rosemary's Baby, and Get Out. That was the list last year. This year we have 10 new films. Russell and I kind of divided it into two themes. So I picked as a theme for mine conspiracy-related horror films, and then Russell picked for him cult horror films. So we kind of picked two subgenres, one each, and so our movies will kind of fit in that category. But we have seen some of you guys name some of your favorites already. What do we see some people talk about? Hellraiser. Yeah, Hellraiser's good. What were some other ones that came in, Russell, that you wanted to respond to? 28 Days Later is good. Event Horizon's really good. That was very scary.
Well, a lot of comments have come in since then. All right, Cannibal Holocaust. All right, so backstory on that is there was a lot of speculation that it was an actual snuff film.
Right.
Because I think Cannibal Holocaust is about 74. If you watch that today, there is an effect at the end where a woman is spitted on a wood stake, where the effect is so realistic. I can see why they thought that, because that was way ahead of most of the makeup at that time. You didn't really start seeing those kinds of effects until the 80s. So they thought it was actually a snuff film, which of course it was not. That's why you can still see it.
I boycotted that. As I understood, they actually harmed animals in that. They actually killed like turtles for it, and that to me is a disqualifier.
That is true.
That is a disqualifier. Disqualified for me. So I'm sorry, that one is nixed. Disqualified. Loser. I will not watch a movie where they harm. The whole point of film is it's spectacle, and no one actually gets hurt. Once you start crossing the line and actually start hurting animals for your movie, that's where I say no. To disqualifier. I did. Somebody mentioned Nope. Nope was a movie that I enjoyed quite a bit, but that's an example to me of a great director reading their own press and overindulging and not editing properly. There was just too much in it. It didn't all come together. It was enjoyable, but it kind of left me not knowing much of what I had just seen, and not in a good way either. So it was entertaining. It was fun. It's effective, but ultimately, I don't want to call it a misstep because it's not a bad movie, but it's nowhere near as good as Get Out. And then Us, I actually have not seen. That's just one of those things that you mean to see and you don't.
Us is very good. I think it's destined to go down as a modern classic. Nope. I was so not into it. I think I watched half of it and never bothered to get back to finishing it.
See, it held my interest. It just didn't all come together for me.
Yeah, I lost interest.
Let's see, what else did we have? What other suggestions?
Hot Tension, otherwise known as High Tension. That was a follow-up from the director of Martyrs. I felt like he was trying to capture the just absolutely horrific shock value of Martyrs, and it's like the Bugs Bunny cartoon. It's a great trick, but you can only do it once. You can only disturb people as much as Martyrs one time. Babadook, I wanted to like it more than I
Babadook.
did. It's not. Oh, Babadook. Yeah, I wanted to like it more than I did. It didn't disturb me as much as I thought it was gonna. The Thing, of course. I'm assuming you're talking about the Kurt Russell remake. I mean, what can you say? It's great, and so's Alien. Alien always reminded me of some of the strips in Heavy Metal magazine in that era. It was this just very gritty, lived-in vision of what being in space would be like. Very different from the more clean, antiseptic visions of it.
Oh yeah, Alien is great. Well, the cool thing about Alien is it's basically a slasher film disguised as a sci-fi film. It's basically Halloween in space, or Friday the 13th in space. It's basically a slasher movie that just happens to take place in outer space, and it's amazing. It's fantastic. The visual effects in that just obviously way ahead of their time. So yeah, nice to see you guys contributing to the conversation. Thank you for those super chats. We'll take a few Rumble rants and super chats.
A few
before
people
we
have
get
mentioned
started.
Event Horizon too.
Oh, I loved Event Horizon.
Yeah, that's
well,
a really
Event
good movie.
Horizon is that's a haunted house movie disguised as a sci-fi movie. That's basically a haunted house film.
Sure.
And that scared the hell out of me as a child because they didn't really market it, because back then sci-fi was the thing. Like late 90s, you had like Independence Day and Men in Black, and the Jurassic Park brought back the sci-fi. So sci-fi was the thing. So they marketed that really as a sci-fi movie. They did not really market that as a straight horror film, which it is. And so I was, 12 when I saw that? That movie fucked me up as a kid. The orgy of death scenes, they actually hired porno actors to shoot those scenes because they wanted to be able to do things that they couldn't get, Hollywood actors to do. And of course, the cuts were instant, so you didn't actually see much of anything. It still got an R rating. But yeah, that is a pretty scary movie.
That was like Caligula in space.
Exactly, yeah. That was a scary movie. Event Horizon is a great one. For sure. Okay, let's take some Rumble rants here to start out. If you can find it, Cemetery Man, old horror film from the mid-'90s based on the comics Dylan Dog. Incredible, artistic, surreal, weird, and beautiful film. A.K. El Della Morte della More in Italian. All right, that's something to look for. I have not heard of that one.
I'm trying to think. I might have seen that. I might have.
Yeah, I have not. Last two, I'm sorry, I ran out of space to put your names up here, but thank you for these contributions over on Rumble. The last two Rumble videos got 2 unlikes. What? 2 unlikes?
Oh my God.
It's the same 2 people unliking and moving on, wondering if it's you two. No, it's not us. Mostly wrong, always truthful. Sam Ain is pronounced Soen, by the way. Okay, got it. It's not us unliking the Rumble videos. I don't know who those are. But whatever. Can't please everybody.
Probably Zach and Gavin.
Yes, by Zach and Gavin. Yeah, exactly. Okay, beautiful. And then also, that reminds me, if you guys are mostly wrong, what the heck am I actually paying for? I mean, what is all this? That I walk into some kind of reverse MAGA anarcho-syndicalist cult? Oh, perhaps. Oh, George. Thank you, oh, George. Appreciate that. Okay. We got some super chats, which we will get to in a few moments. Let's take this one for now. It's Biden's Nightmare Before Christmas. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Thank you for that. Alrighty, folks. So we got 10, 5, and 5. I got the conspiracy subgenre. Russell's got the cult subgenre. So this is a movie that I really love. It's based on a play by Tracy Letts, and the movie version came out in 2007. It stars Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon. For those Michael Shannon fans, this was one of his earlier film roles because he actually originated in the off-Broadway play. And the director, William Friedkin, director of The Exorcist, obviously loved Shannon so much that he insisted he be cast in the movie version. They didn't go with a Hollywood actor opposite Ashley Judd, which would have been the easy choice. But if you love Michael Shannon, you have to see this. I think he's a fantastic actor, and he is just over the top brilliant in this movie. This is called Bug. And like I said, this is based on a play by Tracy Letts. It is about a lonely waitress who is living in a hotel hiding from her sort of abusive ex-husband, and a drifter happens upon her. They meet and they go back to the hotel, and a little romance develops between them. But it turns out this drifter, played by Michael Shannon, is an ex-military guy who is convinced that the army implanted bugs under his skin. And so it deals with a lot of conspiracy theories. He mentions the Bilderberg Group. He mentions, all sorts of military-industrial complex stuff. And he is convinced that he is a subject of a military experiment. And you can imagine how badass this must be to watch on stage. I actually directed a stage version of this at the theater I used to work at after I saw this movie. He mutilates himself. He pulls his teeth out. He digs under his skin. You can really have a lot of fun with that on stage, which we did. We used about a gallon of fake blood a night. But it is super intense. Friedkin was a great horror director. Obviously, The Exorcist, so gritty and real. The gore, the body horror elements are so well done. And dramatically, it's fantastic. It's this love story between these very broken people. And if you see at the top of the poster there, Harry Connick Jr., of all people, plays the abusive ex-husband, this overbearing, abusive asshole. He was excellent. That's one of the oddest casting choices ever, but he was actually excellent in it. And so one of the strangest casting choices you'll ever see is Harry Connick Jr. As this real creep, this real menace. But it's a great movie. I love it so much. It has a real heart to it. And if you are a conspiracy guy like I am, you will absolutely love it. And you will be scared and you will squirm. It is very intense, extremely intense.
What really fascinated me about this movie after I saw it, because I really didn't know what it was, and this is why it did not do well at the box office. Nobody did.
Nobody did. No.
What was the tagline? Kill the queen or something.
Something like that. The marketing was really, really bad for it.
But then when I saw it, I figured out why. How the fuck do you explain what this movie is? How do you explain this? I saw it in a pretty full house, and you could see people getting very disturbed by this movie in a way that you would get disturbed if you didn't understand what kind of ride you had just bought a ticket for.
Well, what William Friedkin said was that the advertising campaign of this movie really hurt it because at the time this movie came out, the Saw franchise was really big. And so they advertised it as just a torture porn gore fest, which, of course, it's not. It's based on a play. It's much smarter than that. But since that was what was taking in all the money at the time, that's how they marketed it. We actually saw this by accident, my friend and I. My friend worked at the local movie theater. We went to the movies that night thinking we were going to see something else, which ended up not being playing. But since he worked at the theater, we got into any movie we wanted for free. So we're like, oh, let's stay and see something. No, let's check this bug thing out. And I loved it. I didn't even go see it on purpose. We just wandered into the theater, and what a treat. It's amazing.
All right, so help me God, this is true. I was doing I just saw a movie, and I'm just going to sneak in and see the movie next door.
Right.
And, you wind up walking into the middle most of the time. That is how I saw They Live for the first time. And help me God, I walked right into the scene where he first puts on the sunglasses. And my peals of laughter greatly disturbed everybody in that audience. I was like, am I tripping? What did I just walk into? I cannot believe what I'm seeing.
Wow. All right, Russell, you're up.
Okay, so I mixed it up here quite a lot. I've got stuff in here that is really, really not for the faint of heart, and then this is it's not really a horror movie, although it does have some horror scenes. I cannot tell you how much I love this movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. Phantom of the Paradise. It is a satiric musical of a kind that they used to make. They don't make this kind of movie anymore, where it's these dark satiric musicals like Rocky Horror was basically one of those.
Right.
So it's a musical directed by Brian De Palma, written and directed by Brian De Palma. This was his first movie, Phantom of the Paradise. It's interesting because you can see his split screen stuff. He's already doing that in this movie. That would become a hallmark of his directing. It's very much of its time. This is back when you had rock palaces, right? Like the Fillmore. Yeah, these kinds of venues. So it's about a hugely influential pop star turned producer who is opening his own rock palace, the Paradise, and he's looking for the perfect music to open it. So one night after one of the bands under his management performs, there's some loser songwriter there. Nobody's paying attention to him, but he hears his music. And it's this cantata about Faust. And he sees, this is the perfect music to open my rock palace. So tells him he's going to give him a contract, winds up stealing all of his music, framing him for drugs, sending him to prison, releasing this music as an album in an attempt to shut it down. Winslow Leach, the songwriter, has his face burned in a record press and then becomes the Phantom of the Paradise. So it's a mix of Faust, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and obviously Phantom of the Opera.
Right.
Very funny, very smart, very sharp satire, really great soundtrack. Even though the movie was a commercial and critical bomb that became, as all the best cult movies do, successful later after its run, it was nominated for Academy Awards for its soundtrack. And that soundtrack was by a guy who is largely forgotten today. He was as big in his day as Paul Simon and Simon, who am I thinking of? Elton John,
right.
As a pianist songwriter. Paul Williams, very weird looking dude. He was like 4'9" or something. But he was hugely successful. He was always on the Muppet Show and Hollywood Squares, and he's the one who wrote the music for the Muppet movie, like Rainbow Connection. That's Paul Williams. So he wrote all the music for this. It's a great soundtrack, and it's a very funny, sharp examination of that moment in pop music and in culture. Like the rock fans are portrayed as kind of mindless, violent hedonists, in a lot of respects. It has a lot to say about its moment, but it's a very entertaining, very textured movie. Not a horror movie. If you're looking to watch something really nasty, this isn't the one. But if you want to see something really unique and entertaining, again, I cannot tell you how much I love that movie. One of my favorite movies of all time.
All right, Russell mixing it up there. Oh, look at this. Les says Jacob's Ladder was a great psychological thriller. I agree. That's next on my list here, 1990s. Jacob's Ladder. So this is about a Vietnam veteran played by Tim Robbins with PTSD, not just from battle, but from the loss of his child. And he experiences these sort of waking nightmares, these hallucinations, these visions, while trying to readjust to life in New York City. And as the movie unfolds, we kind of see why he's having the sorts of issues, to put it mildly, that he has. And so it really unfolds as a sort of mystery thriller, but it's a great psychological horror piece that really, I think, benefits from the fact that it was actually not made by a horror director. This is directed by Adrian Lyne. His most famous film is Fatal Attraction, but he also did 9.5 Weeks, Indecent Proposal, Flashdance.
Right, yeah.
Not a horror director, which I think makes this movie even more disturbing because the film has this very gritty and real sort of aesthetic to it. It doesn't play like fantasy. It plays very real. It's Taxi Driver's New York, and it's depicted as such, which makes the sort of waking nightmare sequences all the more effective because you really feel grounded in the real world for so much of it. And then the sort of surrealistic or fantastical flourishes really feel very, very jarring and very disturbing. There were no after effects done for this movie. All of the monster effects, all of the ghost effects were all done in camera. No post-production CGI or anything like that. This actually, believe it or not, was the inspiration behind the Silent Hill video game series. And 20 minutes of material, 20 minutes of material was actually cut from the final chapter of this movie because test audiences were just too traumatized by it. So This is psychological horror. It almost, I don't want to say, I mean, it almost has a David Lynch kind of vibe to it, like a Mulholland Drive, where it combines sort of, very sort of bare realism with flashes and jolts of surrealism and horror elements. And really, really good. It was remade in 2019, starring Jesse Williams in a remake that got, I think, 4% on Rotten Tomatoes, an absolute bomb.
No, I didn't even hear about that.
Nobody even heard about it. I didn't even hear about it until I was putting my notes together for this. But the original is great. It's one of those great late 80s, early 90s sort of great sort of psychological horror, very entertaining sort of popcorn movies. And Tim Robbins is very good in it. So that's my pick. I see a couple in the audience agree, so that's good.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I hadn't really thought about it. Yeah, Jacob's Ladder established certain conventions for representing demons or hell or damnation, the kind of shaky thing. You see that a lot later on.
Yep.
Actually, in Japanese horror, you see that a lot. Right. Thinking about it now, yeah, Jacob's Ladder was one of the first movies, if not the first, to use that aesthetic to represent hell, to represent being in hell. Yep,
indeed. All right, why don't we take a couple of super chats before we continue here? We got a Rumble rant here from Dave Delarai. Said, didn't get a link in my email saying you were live on Rumble as well. Yeah, always assume we're live everywhere. When we say we're live, that means we're live YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Twitch. The only time we will make a special announcement is when we're not live on YouTube. But this seems like a pretty censor-proof show. Hey, we're the Cat in the Hat and Hunter S. Thompson. All right, how much trouble can we get into today? But thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Famous last words.
Yeah, and Dave over on YouTube. Dave hit us up on Rumble and YouTube. There he goes, one of God's own prototypes. A high-powered mutant of some kind never seen considered for mass production.
Too weird to live, too rare to die.
There you go. I should have let you read that whole thing, actually. Shino Bill, thanks for the $5. The Witch really disturbed me the first time I watched it. I saw it at Alamo Draft House. They showed Haxon before, which really set the mood. Yeah, The Witch is very good. The Witch really benefits from a second viewing, too, I feel like. I feel like the second time I saw The Witch, I liked it even more. Because the first time, it's, the Old English is a bit of an adjustment the first time. You don't catch everything that's going on the first time. And also because there was so much hype around that movie when it came out, it's really more of it is a horror film. If you have to put a genre on it, it's horror. But it's really a folktale, a dark folktale. And it is fantastically done. I mean, the acting, the writing, everything is captured so well in that. And I actually really loved, I never saw The Lighthouse, which was Dave Eggers' follow-up, but I did see The Northman, and that was great. The Northman was amazing.
That was really good.
It was really fantastic. Good. The Northman is basically Amleth, which was Shakespeare's inspiration for Hamlet. So it's basically the story of Hamlet done, as a Norse myth, and it was outstanding. I loved that one. But yeah, The Witch, great stuff.
I meant to tell you, Michael Shannon's doing Waiting for Godot.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I drove Michael Shannon around in my car a few times because he, in 2010, shot a movie called Return about a woman coming home from war, starring Linda Cardellini and Michael Shannon. And I was a PA on that, just as an intern.
Oh, okay.
And I had a tiny little Saturn, and I drove him around in my tiny little Saturn. He's about 6'6", and so I was the guy who got to drive him around. I don't know if he's every bit of 6'4", 6'5". He's big, very, very tall. Very tall. But then he does a lot of theater. He was in a great play that year called Mistakes Were Made, basically a one-man show that we went and saw and hung out with him a bit. Very similar guy to his characters, very eccentric, very kind of quirky. I mean, very nice guy. But yeah, it was wild to get, because at the time I was a huge fan of his because of Bug, but he wasn't a huge star yet. So it was cool to just kind of get to hang with him on the set a bit. Not that I got to know him very well, but it was a small crew, so we all knew each other a little. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. But yeah, he's doing Waiting for Godot with Paul Sparks.
Yeah.
In
Brooklyn.
Theater for a New Audience. Is that what it is? Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
John Locke, thanks for the $20. Appreciate that. Martin R.
Thank you.
Thanks to the $19.99. Appreciate that very much. Thank you guys for being here, getting some box office in for our movie show today. So thank you very much for that, folks. Okay, Russell, you are up next. Oh, this is a fun one.
All right, so I decided not to go all for movies that were made before 1980, because there have been a lot of great cult movies made in the last 20 years, and this is one of them. Nicolas Cage's Mandy, that was made 2018. Although it does have this very retro vibe, it's clearly a tribute to those 70s cult movies, right down to the opening track being from psychedelic band King Crimson, a song called Starless. The whole movie, and it was shot in Panavision to really get, so if you watch the movie, you wonder why it looks exactly like one of these 70s movies. That's why they shot it with the same kind of camera. So it's Nicolas Cage and Andrea Riseborough, who we did a story about way back. She was the working class actress who got an Oscar nomination, much to the horror of the studios, who spend lots of money bribing the Academy for nominations.
Right.
They didn't appreciate her comeuppance, giving them their comeuppance. So she plays Mandy, and there's definitely this very odd, surreal quality about the movie right from the beginning. They live in the Pacific Northwest, and she works in, I think it's a drugstore, but she reads sci-fi novels and she does fantasy painting, and he's a lumberjack. And I gotta say, you know, when you do this kind of revenger, it's a trope of a revenger to show how great a life the Punisher has before you take his family away,
right,
in order to slingshot him into the revenge part of the movie. I've never seen this better done. Like, you watch this, you really feel like these people have this beautiful, idyllic life, and there's this just amazing love between them. Like, that really helps to make the movie work. Also, this is Nicolas Cage at his best. So a cult fixates on Mandy, sees her walking on the side of the road, and the cult leader decides she's so beautiful he has to add her to his cult, and he gets deranged demonic bikers to go and abduct her for him. So they break into the house, tie up Nicolas Cage with barbed wire, and the cult leader is a failed singer, definitely strains of Charles Manson here. When he tries to impress her with his songs and seduce her, she laughs at him, so he burns her alive, launching Nicolas Cage into an orgy of fury and revenge. If you watch a lot of cultural commentary like Critical Drinker, the meme of him in the bathroom in his underwear drinking the hard liquor to get ready for his revenge, that is from Mandy. I actually used it myself when I did my bonus hole supercut a while back. I used a clip from that. After Nick Cage snorts a bunch of cocaine and takes some acid, it's kind of unclear how much of what he sees is completely real. But this is a movie where Nicolas Cage cuts off one of the bikers' penis knives, which squirts blood all over his face, which remains on his face for the rest of the movie. So that's the kind of ride you're in for if you decide to watch Mandy. Beautifully done, very well made. If you're an aficionado of those 70s cult movies but want to see a very aesthetically solid update of that style, and if you are a fan of the Nicolas Cage that showed up for Wild at Heart but on steroids, this is the movie for you.
Yeah, I wanted to see it. I never got around to actually watching that one, actually, but it was definitely on my list of things to see. I'll go out of order here with the super chats. Apologize because we just got one in saying Hereditary was one of the most disturbing films. I didn't pick Hereditary, but I because that's not quite a conspiracy movie. This movie is more of a conspiracy film because even though it's a cult film, it obviously, when you watch it, you understand there's more to the cult than just the cults. But this was a great one. Midsummer. I loved this movie so much. This is by Ari Aster, obviously same director who made Hereditary. This is about... It's basically a breakup film. It's about a girl whose family just died in a murder-suicide, who's having relationship troubles with her boyfriend over her grieving process, and she gets invited out to this commune in Sweden, which is not what it seems. And as the movie unfolds, you kind of realize that even things earlier on that may have appeared accidental are not so accidental. There's all kinds of Easter eggs hidden throughout the movie, all sorts of visual hints to suggest that actually looks like every event in this film from minute one was orchestrated by the cult who needs a new May Queen every year. And so it's a film that really does benefit from a second viewing, because a lot of the storytelling cues, a lot of the narrative cues in this are sort of hidden throughout the film. Even in the early part of the movie before they actually go to the commune. So it really is this mystery with a lot of very, very subtle layers to it. But on the surface, it's very, very scary. It's very intense. And the great thing about this, it is a horror film set almost entirely in the middle of the day. There's only really one scene in it that has a horror element in darkness, and even that is during the daytime. It's just inside, so it's kind of dark and shadowy. Other than that, everything is lit very, very fully, and so it's really unique in that way. And the great thing about Ari Aster is, and this was great about Hereditary as well, is that he doesn't overexploit the horror elements in the movies. Like, most of his movies are just sort of straight drama or even comedy. There's a lot of dialogue, and the horror elements come in quick and strong, and the violence is ultra realistic and ultra graphic, but it's not exploitative. It doesn't last longer than it has to. So this is a really effective one. I have to see his new one, the one with Joaquin Phoenix, Beau is Afraid. That's not a straight horror film, but that has some horror elements. You did see it?
No. I was reading about it.
Yeah, so that one sounds interesting too, but this is a really interesting one, and it really, I think, warrants two viewings because there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, apparently, multiple people are mentioning this. Apparently, Critical Drinker hated this movie. I'm surprised at that. I didn't feel that way. I mean, it definitely owes a lot to Wicker Man, but it's certainly not a copy of it. It's not a ripoff of it. It's got its own identity and its own take on that theme. I mean, there are literally dozens of movies.
Yeah, that are related to Wicker Man. Right, exactly.
Sure, about people who go hang out with a cult and it turns on them. Like, it's a pretty common trope. In fact, I almost did a cult movie list that was about actual cults, and it wasn't hard to come up with 5.
Right, exactly.
No problem, right? And at least 3 of them end that way, right? They're with the cult, and then
But much like, when I say there are cues in here, like at the end of the movie, there's one of the characters gets trapped inside the carcass of a bear, right? So the bear is this visual cue that presents itself throughout the beginning of the movie before they even go to the commune. And so the implication very strongly is that everything you see was orchestrated, right? And that's why I put it in the conspiracy category, because it's not just a cult movie. Right. It is a conspiracy movie in that way too.
Right, sure.
And there's other elements to take a look at for. Yep. Yeah. Right down to the inciting incident at the very beginning. But anyway, I'll let people watch and see for themselves. All right, should we take some super chats, or do you want to do yours first? We got quite a few super chats. Let's take a few, shall we?
Go for it.
All right, Cool Blue. Thanks for the $4.99 recommendation. Renee Daalder's Massacre at Central High, not Halloween themed, but mix of politics and violence and horrifying deaths. I have not heard of that one.
Cool Blue, when you come up with something that I haven't heard of from that era, that's impressive.
That's impressive. Yeah, I have not heard of that one, Cool Blue, but thank you. How about silent horror? What's scarier, Nosferatu or Birth of a Nation? Well, I guess we have to say Birth of a Nation, don't we?
It's interesting when you look at those very early silent horror films. That's in a period where they weren't sure yet if film was more like painting and photography or if it was more like theater. So you would have all of these very surreal elements. And that lasts into even the early talkies. Even if you watch Todd Browning's Dracula in 1931, it has these very surreal kind of images in it. It's a kind of almost magic realism. The cabinet of Dr. Caligari, that kind of thing. There's a little known fact. They had nudity in silent films. They got rid of it once they started to have talking, because they decided once they had dialogue, this is theater. It's not painting.
Right. Yep. Mark Patlin, Cabin in the Woods, that unicorn. Yeah, Cabin in the Woods was a lot of fun. But, Russell and I are a couple of South Park fans, and so any South Park fans in the audience will get what I'm about to say. I couldn't help but think at the end of Cabin in the Woods, it felt a lot like the Imagination Land South Park episode, where all these different characters from all these different worlds and imaginations, collide in one, blood orgy at the end. It had the same kind of feel, and it kind of, I don't want to say it jumped the shark, because it always kind of presented itself as tongue-in-cheek, but it was fun. It was definitely a fun one. I dug that. Infrared, thanks for doing the thing that you do, boys. Happy Halloween to all dissidents. Yes, happy Halloween, folks. Hit that like button. Hope this is a welcome break from the real-life horrors of the world, which we'll be getting back to tomorrow, so don't worry. All right, Russell, you're up.
Any pause in hostilities is only temporary.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Ginger Snaps. This is a great little cult film from Canada about two sisters who are, like every neighborhood has the creepy sisters with a weird connection, right? So they're the weird kind of goth sisters with a suicide pact that if they don't escape the town by the time they're 16, they're going to commit suicide. You're not quite sure if they're serious about it. Ginger, the one on the right in this poster, she gets her period, and as very often happens in these kinds of teen horror things, puberty precipitates horrific physical transformations. So she's bitten by a werewolf, which makes her ravenously sexual and increasingly dangerous and violent. Now, the focus with this movie, in terms of the subtext, is usually that very obvious element of the confusion of adolescence and the transformations and the dangers of coming to sexual maturity. What makes this movie different for me, what makes the movie very poignant, is I think the more interesting subtext is about Bridget, the sister on the left, because it kind of plays like a story about what happens when the person you love the most becomes an extremely destructive force in your life. Because throughout this movie, she's clearly the ugly sister, right? And she's trying to manage the behavior of the more vivacious, beautiful sister, becoming a werewolf sister. And it puts her in a position where she has to decide whose life is more valuable and whose needs are more important. I feel like it's a movie about that. I feel like it's a movie about what you do if the people you love are destroying you. And that's to me what makes the movie stand out. Because there have been a lot of movies, going back to the B movies, I was a teenage werewolf dealing with adolescence, puberty as a metaphor for monstrosity. This does something a little different that I've never seen in another movie.
Yeah, when did that come out? This is the only one on your list
2000.
that I had never heard. Okay, I had never even heard of this one. The other ones I heard of, and I saw a couple on your list, but this was the only one I had never heard of.
It spawned 2 sequels, actually, and they're both good.
Interesting. All right. This is a pick that I talked about on the show briefly. I picked this for one of our episodes, but I'll talk a little bit more in detail about it now. This is called The Conspiracy, a tiny little independent sort of mockumentary, sort of found footage horror thriller about these two guys who are making a documentary film about a conspiracy theorist. You know, a guy who goes out on the street with a megaphone and screams into the sky, and they go to his apartment and he has the yarn and the push pins and the maps connecting all these different interests and politicians and businesses and things like that. And they're making the film, and then one day he vanishes. And they go to track him down. And in doing so, they are roped into an actual conspiracy. And it is fantastically well done. It is so well acted. It feels so real as you're watching it. The way the third act unfolds is terrific. It has one of the great reveals in any horror film I've ever seen. It's kind of a twist, kind of not a twist, but it's a great aha moment, you know, like in The Sixth Sense when the wedding ring, winds down on the floor and you realize, oh shit, wow. This has one of those real moments in there toward the end. But the real great thing about this movie is that it really captures the psychology of the conspiracy theorist. And the conspirators don't prey on the naivete of their victims. They rather prey on the paranoia of their victims. In other words, the whole trap, the whole plot that unfolds, orchestrated by the conspirators, they use the fact that people are onto them to trick them even further. So it's this real sort of chess game between people who think they're onto something and people who pull the strings enough to anticipate how that conspiracy theory mind works. And so it's fantastically well done. It's short. It's only about 90 minutes. But the ending is pretty chilling. The ending really makes you think a lot about the world and about, hey, what if some of these conspiracy theories were true? How easy would it be for them to win anyway, right? That's really what you come away with. And it's a great ride. I really recommend it. It is super entertaining. It's almost unheard of. This played the festival circuit in 2013. That's about it. But it is streaming for free, I think, on Tubi. So you can watch it for free now online, and I recommend you all do that.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. What's the other thing we were talking about that you keep pushing? Oh, The Host. Right.
Well, that's
that
next,
one.
Yeah. What's the other movie you keep pushing? You keep pushing like I have stock in it. Like I get a commission from it.
No, you've been telling me to watch this movie for like 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
But The Conspiracy I actually watched.
Yeah. All right, you're up. What do you got? Oh, yeah, this one. This is a great one. Okay, so this is one of yours that I did see.
Okay, so It Follows, which one of the reasons this made the list, I mean, it deserves to be on the list, but a lot of movies deserve to be on the list. They just announced a sequel yesterday.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool.
Yeah, They Follow.
Interesting, okay.
Just announced. Okay, so Jay is a typical high school student, is dating Hugh, decides to get it on. He chloroforms her. She wakes up tied to a chair. Hugh, in a very distraught state, explains to her that he's being pursued by a creature that only he and she will, now that she's infected with this curse, will be able to see. And he just wants her to see it before he goes. And he explains to her the only way to pass it on is she has to have sex with somebody else. So she sees the figure. And one of the creepiest things about this is it doesn't run. It just steadily walks to you. It always knows where you are, and it doesn't teleport. Like, the suggestion is you could go to Japan and it would just walk across the bottom of the ocean until it got to you. Like, eventually it's going to get to you. So, which creates an interesting moral question. Do you have sex with somebody to get rid of it? Do you pass that on to someone? Now, the movie very much has the quality of a nightmare, and that is not a coincidence. Its filmmaker, let me get his name. He deserves a shout out. David Robert Mitchell. I don't know him because, frankly, he hasn't had much of a career after this, sadly, and surprisingly, because this was a really high quality movie. He said when his parents were going through a divorce when he was a kid, he had nightmares about a figure that would keep pursuing him that could never be gotten rid of. That's probably why the movie has such a it really feels like that. This is a nightmare. What does it mean? I don't know that it does. You obviously have very often in horror sexual guilt tied up in a lot of the themes, and I mean I'm sure there's some elements of that there, but really it just plays as a great spooky, disturbing, nightmarish ride. I would highly recommend it if you want to get creeped out. Like if you like the horror movie, the kind of horror movie that makes you feel like, ooh, that's the one.
Yeah, it's really good. I liked it a lot. This is one of my favorite movies of whatever year it came out. Was it like 2016, 17, something like that? But yeah, it was really, really well done. And just a very unique
also let me just mention, because somebody's saying, well, you could sleep with a terrible person like Hillary. Okay, so this is part of the catch. The reason the guy makes a point of telling her how to pass it on is that if this thing gets to the person who's at the end of the chain, you're next. It'll then come back for you. So you don't get rid of it permanently. So he needs her to pass it on so that it stays more degrees of separation from him. You see what I'm saying? Like this movie just has this very nightmarish quality about it. The logic of it really draws you in. But I'm sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. That was basically all I had. But it is really good. It's very good. So I recommend it as well. Where's Skill? Thank you for the $5. Pet Sematary is underrated creepy movie. Remake does things better. Yeah, I never saw the remake to Pet Sematary. I never saw that. I'm going to watch the finale of The Fall of the House of Usher tonight. Did you watch that whole series?
I did.
So far, it's good. I mean, it's fine.
Nah.
Yeah.
It's fine. Exactly. It wasn't as good as his other two.
Yeah, no. Well, he's done a bunch more. He's done more than that for Netflix. He did The Haunting of Hill House, which is a masterpiece. That's amazing. And then The Bly Manor was very good.
I actually watched that twice. It was good enough to watch twice.
Oh, Haunting of Hill House is a masterpiece. That's my favorite thing that's come out in the past 10 years, movie or TV. Like, that was just phenomenal. As a drama, it works. Like, the dramatic elements are
the writing.
The writing is phenomenal.
The monologues. It's like a play.
It's like a play, and yeah, so many of the scenes are just so great. Even the monologues, like the scene where the caretaker's talking about his history of the home, and the writing is so strong that he doesn't have to like cut to a montage of what the person's talking about. He just points the camera and lets them talk. But the scene in that movie,
what's the refrain about the wife if she gets scattered?
Scattered, I think. Yeah.
If she gets scattered. Yeah, beautiful writing. Beautiful.
The scene where the kids are telling the mother all the bad things that are going to happen to them when they get older, and all the ways that the mother is going to fail them when they get older is just, it's so amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's very scary, but just dark and sad. And that's a masterpiece. Midnight Mass was great too. And then his other one last year, The Midnight Club, that was pretty good. It wasn't great either.
Was that his? I didn't even realize
that was his. Yeah, but he didn't write most of that, I don't think. But yeah.
Yeah, he didn't, right? Like it's not like
I think he wrote one or two of them, but he, is the executive producer or something. But yeah, so I got to watch the last of that tonight. Thanks, Where's Skill? Ashley, this is just a question. Have you ever watched The Others? Yes, it's a great psychological horror film. Yeah, The Others is very good.
It's very good.
Others is quite good, and that has really stood the test of time. That
this
remains
is our house.
A classic to this day.
This is our house.
Yep. Others is quite strong. Late to the stream, did y'all discuss The Stuff yet? Also, I don't know about you, but The Shining is about the fake moon landing truther. Oh, you are The Shining moon landing truther. That's a fun lens to watch that one through. The Shining is not just one of the greatest horror films ever. The Shining is one of the greatest movies ever made. I mean, the technique in that is unbelievable. And yeah, the moon landing is one lens through which you can watch that, but there are so many interpretations of that movie, and the detail is just so complex. They actually made an entire documentary called Room 237, which is about all of the different, hidden things in that movie. So no, The Shining is a masterpiece, obviously.
Well, this is when I was trying to figure out what list to do. I felt like I should go for cult because why talk about best of? Because you've all seen these movies, right?
Yeah, we figured we'd make it a little
greatest,
right. Right. Who cares?
Yeah, it's going to be The Shining, you know. The others might be on a list like that. Well, certainly like The Exorcist would be on that list.
Right. It's very, that's a predictable thing.
Right.
Exactly. Buried alive, angry man Tim Matheson rises from the grave after his wife Jennifer Jason Leigh and her doctor lover William Atherton inject him with fish toxin. Watched this when I was 9. You see it? No, I never saw that one. Did you ever see that one?
I've never seen it. That's very Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, I have not seen that one, but thank you, Dave. And then Rut Dog asks, whose smoke detector is going off? What's that beeping? Here's $5 for batteries. All right, is anybody hearing a beeping?
Oh, you know what? I'm surprised this is picking that up. Yeah, I just had the apartment painted. The guy just finished today, and I think when he did it, he reconnected that because I always take out the battery because it fucking does that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So I guess
I will disable it after the show.
It's funny. I didn't hear it.
I'm very surprised that's getting picked up on the mic because that's like behind a door down a hallway.
I can't hear it on my end. That's a good ear, whoever has that. Pat Donahue, thanks for the €5. I'd like a horror where Russell's old bookshelf comes back. It's a haunted. Yeah.
Every night in my dreams.
Exactly. Ryan Wood, thanks for the $10. Ravenous deserves attention. Yeah, I never saw that either. If you can find it, Cigarettes Burns from the Showtime series Masters of Horror. And happy to see your channel growing. Well, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I fucking loved Masters of Horror. One of my favorite things ever was the one with Robert Englund in this post-apocalyptic world with this post-apocalyptic nightclub. Just look up Masters of Horror, Robert Englund. It was only in one. If you can find it, that's a really great episode. Yeah, basically it's a zombie thing, but not like they tried to create zombie soldiers, but it didn't work. But what it does do is if you inject dead people, they'll jump around. So this nightclub owner buys them to basically, you know, scantily clad dead women to jerk around on stage. That's Robert Englund is the club owner.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Laugh, thanks for the £5. Talking of nocturnal emissions, yeah, it's from Sunday night. You mentioned that. The Pit and the Pendulum gave me both nightmares and the horn as a 9-year-old. Oh, well, that's good to know. Beautiful, thank you.
And that explains a lot.
That explains a lot. Shinabilly, love it follows. Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for the $10. It's the old mummy's curse plot with some old STD social commentary. Yeah, it's one interpretation of it follows. Yeah, for sure. That's not too hard. All right, let's. We each have one more on our list for the afternoon. Before we bid you guys adieu, we'll get to more super chats before we wrap, of course. So Russell teased this out. This is a movie that I absolutely love. This is one of my favorite movies ever. This is by the Korean director Bong Joon-ho, most famous now for Parasite, which obviously won all those Oscars a few years back. This is a great, great monster movie called The Host. And The Host is basically about an experiment gone wrong, which creates this man-eating monster that kidnaps this little girl, as you could see from the poster. And so the journey to rescue her uncovers the source of the monster, and it could be a metaphor for a certain thing that, you know, we're not going to talk about because this is supposed to be a censor-proof stream here. But in light of recent world events, it actually serves as a metaphor for much more than it intended to at the time. This came out in 2006, but it is so good that at one point in the movie, when I first saw this movie, the monster disappears for a while. And at a certain point, I actually forgot the monster was a thing. Like the conspiracy behind it, the evil behind the monster is far scarier than the creature itself. And it is a masterpiece. This is one of my favorite movies ever. I love The Host. I don't want to give too much away because there's real tragedy in it, as well as real intrigue. And it's fantastic. It is one of my favorites. And like I said, I'm glad Bong Joon-ho got his due. Obviously, Parasite, great movie. as well. But he has a real flair for sci-fi and horror as well. And so I definitely could not recommend this highly enough.
I am sold. I might watch that later as my Halloween horror movie.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
Finally watch it.
Yep, got some love for the host coming in the chat. That's good to see as well. All right, Russell, you're up. All right, now this one, Russell recommended this one back when we had an audio podcast.
And Keaton got mad at me.
Well, because I just have to caution you, like this will fuck you up if you watch it. So go in knowing that this is not like, oh, this will be scary. It's not like, oh, this is like a Saw thing. No, this will really fuck you up if you watch this. But here, this is Russell's last pick.
Yeah, I mentioned it, and then like the next show we did, Keaton was like, "What the fuck are you mentioning that to the audience for without warning them?"
Right, without warning them. This is not the kind of movie you just casually mention. Oh yeah, here, Martyrs. That's a great Halloween fun. You know what I mean? Like you have to actually warn people what they're in for when you talk about something like this. Yeah.
So consider yourselves warned now. So Martyrs, which I just found out when I was putting together my notes for the show today. I didn't even know they did an American remake that I'm sure is fucking terrible. That's why I don't know about it. This is a joint Canadian-French production that was shot in Montreal, done in 2008. They did an American version in 2015 of this. Martyrs takes you through a lot of twists and turns before you can figure out exactly what this movie is. So it opens with a girl escaping from horrible torture. She's been tortured for a year. This is 1971. She goes to an orphanage. She becomes best friends with a girl who's not suffered that kind of abuse, but was taken out of an abusive home. Flash forward to 1986, 15 years later, and the girl who was tortured goes on a mission to kill this entire family that she claims, the parents, the teenage sons that she claims were involved in her abduction. Her loyal friend from the orphanage is horrified, of course, but she's such a good friend. She helps her clean up the bodies, but then Lucy, the girl who was abducted, commits suicide in front of her, or delete well, too late now. Deletes herself is what I meant to say.
We could say that in this we're talking about a movie. Yeah.
We're talking about, I guess, since we're talking about movies. I mean, who knows, though? With the AI, you may be paranoid, man. Right. You never know with them. The next day, while on the phone with her own abusive parent, Anna, the protagonist, finds a hidden chamber under the house and realizes that her friend was not crazy, that there actually was some cult torturing people. So I don't want to give the movie away entirely, but it takes all of these turns. You don't know what you're watching. You don't know if this is a revenger. You don't know if this is torture porn. In the end, what it winds up being, this is what torture porn becomes when you cycle it through the French mind. It's this very elevated, intellectual, extremely disturbing, philosophically rich take on what is essentially a torture porn film. So yeah, I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to spoil it. But as Keaton said, that's all I will say about it. But as Keaton said, yeah, listen, this is a rough ride. You know how rough a ride this is? When they premiered this film in France, people walked out in France.
Oh yeah, it's extreme. Even the trailer for it is extreme. Like, don't even explore it if you're not ready for it. It's like in Spinal Tap. Don't touch the guitar. I'm not touching it. I'm just looking at it. Don't even look at it. Don't even look at it.
If you cannot take, because this is not like Mandy. Mandy is very bloody, campy.
Right, it's
over the top,
stylized. Yeah,
right. It's gushing geysers of anime kind of blood. No, that's not what you're in for here. You're in for realistic, disturbing physical, very believable physical abuse that is really of a kind you've probably never seen in a movie before.
Yeah, it's extremely, extremely intense. So be warned, for sure.
I want to give a couple honorable mentions.
Sure.
Okay, so listen, because I can see, I wasn't sure if I was going to do this, but you've earned my respect. I can see we've got some sick bastards in the audience here. All right, so look, these are like some real like cult movies that are really sick. Number one, I would say the sickest kind of camp cult movie out there, Bloodsucking Freaks. If you have an ounce of, politically correct tendencies, do not watch that movie. You're going to be deeply offended. That is about Sardou's Theater of the Macabre in Manhattan. Fun fact, the guy who played Sardou was not long after that movie was released, murdered in his apartment. That kind of thing happened a lot back then in New York City. Crime was never solved. Another movie, Basket Case, about a young man and his horrifically deformed brother.
Yeah, I've heard of that
who
one.
lives in a basket. Yes, that's another very sick one. And okay, one of the sickest movies I've ever seen, which is another one you'll be very disturbed by if you have any kind of political tendency to get upset by offensive material. Hanger, which is about someone who survived an abortion, the attempt to abort him, and goes to take revenge later on in life. So there's three honorable mentions if you just want really sick movies. All three of those are very, very sick movies.
Yeah, maybe the Daily Wire should remake the Hanger movie. Something they could get into. They want to start making movies.
I had to lay back from the mic.
Well, now that they're getting into they're doing film production now.
Oh, look, see, we've got the best audience. We have somebody here who knows the name of the brother in the basket.
Oh wow,
it was Belial. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. Oh, Human Centipede, of course. Yeah. But everybody
knows that one. Yeah, everybody knows that one.
And the sequel was actually, I would say, better than the original, Human Centipede 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen any of them, but I know who they are, obviously, what those movies are. All right, everybody. Well, that's our list. We'll take some super chats here.
And somebody mentioned Teeth. That was almost on this list. But
I
felt like it was either Teeth or Ginger Snaps. I couldn't do two movies about a fatal vagina.
Right. Yeah, Teeth was good. I saw Teeth. Teeth I liked. Babadook was creepy as fuck. Yeah, I liked the Babadook quite a bit. I think, that movie had so much hype, it was kind of hard for it to live up to it. But I did like it a lot. I liked the Babadook. Left Less, Exorcist 3. I never saw Exorcist 3. I don't think I ever saw any of the Exorcist sequels.
I saw 2, and that sucked.
3
I never saw.
Yeah, Friedkin was just amazing. I mean, that first Exorcist movie is just amazing. I mean, obviously, I'm not breaking any new ground by saying that, but the grit, like he did violence the way very few directors of his time did violence. Even in his later years, in his later movies, they always had this teeth to them that was just very difficult for even a lot of the great directors to really capture. Yeah, he was great. He just died recently, actually. William Friedkin.
Somebody mentioned a Serbian film. Yes.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Yeah.
That's almost up there with Martyrs on the disturbing scale.
Yeah, that's
very good though. Very good.
Yeah, that's extreme. Yes, I would say that is. In certain ways, which we're not even going to mention, that is probably more.
That will get us kicked off. Yeah, we can't talk about it without getting kicked off YouTube. That really should tell you what you're in for with that one.
Yeah, that is really, really crazy. 007 Angelo, thanks for the $2. Want to see a zombie fight a shark? Watch Zombie.
One I almost included on this list that's great. You want to see, since I just mentioned 3 films that are deeply offensive to any self-respecting woman that might watch it. May is a great little feminist horror movie about a medical student who's invited to a party by the faculty and the doctors, and they drug her and assault her. And she winds up becoming an underground surgeon for people who want bizarre surgical alterations, like to be made to look like a doll, that kind of thing. Very, very good little kind of revenge movie.
Vulture Vanity Show, Surveillance by Jennifer Lynch is horrific. Yeah, Jennifer... Oh, no, I'm not thinking...
I never saw that.
I was thinking of Jennifer Kent, who made The Babadook, and she recently made another movie that was supposed to be pretty intense. But yeah, Surveillance. Yeah, I have to look that one up. I forgot. I think that one rings a bell, but I'm not picturing like when it came out or what it is. But thank you for the donation, and yes, Shinabilly also recommends Exorcist 3 as an honorable mention.
Really? Okay.
Interesting.
Sallow, yes, very, very disturbing, based on the work of the Marquis de Sade, but set in Italy during the Holocaust.
Yep.
And yes, Jenny, I saw Sleepaway Camp back in the day.
All right. Very cool. All right, folks. Well, I guess that wraps our Halloween special. Be safe out there tonight, trick-or-treating, and have a little fun. We will be back tomorrow. Like I said, we'll be back on the air 2:30 tomorrow, matinee show tomorrow afternoon. Lots of stuff to talk about then, so be on the lookout for that. But yes, join our Substack, dodissidents.substack.com, so that you are made aware of these schedule changes. That's a great way to keep in touch with us, obviously. And if you can support the show, that helps make these streams possible. Patreon.com/DoDissidents to support what we do here. You can also sign up for our locals, DoDissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble right now, the locals join button is right under the screen. That bright red button that says join, hit us up there, and right under there you see the locals link. You can join for free or as a paid supporter on locals, so that all helps a great deal as well. So we will be back 2:30 p.m. tomorrow as the clock turns to November. Until then, be safe, be well, and happy Halloween.
Courage.
Please clap.